They told me for years there was no money in podcasting. Well, they were all wrong. You go from the Marines, you want to volunteer after 9/11, become a firefighter. Where were you a firefighter? This was
Cincinnati area. So I was in town of Wyoming. We are a suburb surrounded on three sides by Cincinnati. So our community was only about 8,000 houses, but we still made about 1,000 runs a year because we did a lot of mutual aid for the neighboring departments. And some of them had some pretty intense, situations, I should say.
Yeah, because that's like what I always wanted for firefighters. Like, I live in a populated city area. Every now and then I'll hear the sirens go off. I live right next to a firehouse. But like, what's the day-to-day like for a firefighter? Like, what are your typical calls? Like, is it a lot of fires, electrical issues, whatever, a cat in a tree? Like, what's a typical day as a firefighter?
So believe it or not, we still do get cat in the tree calls.
I love it. Amazing.
It's funny because we always tell people, ma'am, have you ever seen a cat skeleton in the tree? You never have. They always come down. And if you put a ladder up on that tree, they're going to go up higher in the tree and be more even difficult to get down. But no, I would say the vast majority of what we call smells and bells alarms, false alarms, that thing. The problem is you have to treat every false alarm like it's the real deal. Go in there in full gear, full setup. We have a lot of what we call EMS support runs where we have somebody that they just need more manpower. Maybe they're a very heavy set person and we just need help getting them out of the house. Maybe it's a trauma and we have to help provide advanced life care for them. But then the next thing probably would be the motor vehicle accidents. And because we were a community that had a main thoroughfare, and there's this concept called mechanism of impact. So if you're on a freeway and everyone's going 50 miles per hour and you hit the car in front of you, the mechanism of impact may only be 5 or 10 miles per hour. Or if you go into the guardrail, it's 50 miles per hour because it's your speed minus the speed of whatever's in front of you. But when you're on a road that doesn't have a barrier, like our situation where you can go 45 miles per hour and another car's coming in at 45 and they hit, that's a 90 mile per hour mechanism of action. That's pretty damn serious. So you get a lot of car extractions and other stuff. And then the fires, I would say probably somewhere a couple dozen a year where you're actually, something's on fire and you're putting what we call wet stuff on the red stuff. And then I'd say there's about 3 to 5 a year that are what we call, the big ones. We call it see it the big one. Yeah. And that's where we're fully masked up, hands and knees, 0% visibility, fully involved houses, and that's where anything happens from making rescues to recoveries to very, very intense dynamic actions. And you just never know. I mean, you can have one day where you'll get 2 major structure fires in one day and then nothing for the next 2 months. There's just no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah, it's just sometimes fires just happen. A lot of them are accidents, and it's just crazy situations. So what's the most dangerous situation you've been in, or one of?
It's interesting. The most interesting thing I find is not the big fires. Those are actually, I wouldn't say they're easy, but those are those things that you get used to, and it's science. I mean, it's just physics. You find the red stuff, you put the wet stuff on it. The most scared I ever was a carbon monoxide run. I went into a house, I actually knew the family. Everybody had headaches. They'd all been sleeping a lot of day, which is the number one thing. I go in the front of the house. You can't smell anything. The dad's acting kind of weird. And my meter goes off. And usually, and again, I'm sure I don't remember the exact words, it's 10 or 20 parts per million of carbon monoxide is considered serious. When you get above the 80 to almost 100 point, then you're talking trouble. And when you get anything over 100, you're in a lethal situation. This guy was reading 300 parts per million.
Oh my God.
So as soon as we opened that front door, I immediately backed my crew out. We masked up, full coverage. He's looking at us like we're funny and we're screaming at him, get out of the house. They're all kind of like taking their time. We're like, no, get out. Kid's upstairs asleep, which means the kid was in big trouble because that's one of the signs. We got him out. Before you know, we had 4 ambulances out front. We're giving them all oxygen therapy. And I would say they were probably somewhere in the 15 to 45 minute range of the whole house being dead and all 5 of them not making it. So for me, that was the most scary thing, just because how simple it was, how routine it was. We walked up to the front house like most carbon monoxide are, which is not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And that was scary. So that was one.
Well, how does something like that happen? How does a carbon monoxide leak happen? And why is a firefighter the one to take care of that?
Yeah. So anything that's, considered a life-threatening illness, the fire department covers it, where the police are more if it's like a person that's causing the problem.
Right.
We cover more if it's something that's causing it. Main source of carbon monoxide is just outdated, like hot water heaters or HVAC system. I'd say the most common thing is you have a blockage in the exhaust of so a lot of your HVAC is going to exhaust into your chimney. And if you get a squirrel in there or a bird's nest, and that blocks the ability for your heating unit to expel that carbon monoxide, it'll hit that bird's nest and then start backing back down again. Right. So those are the areas that get a little dicey with that. And then the thing, so the need of an carbon monoxide detector, I think in some ways is even more important than a smoke detector.
Yeah, because at least you can see and smell smoke. Like, this is just straight up gas. Like, I remember when I moved in.
You'll never know.
Never know. My monoxide detector had to be replaced, and I was like, oh, they better take care of that like today, because God forbid.